Hello, my name is Matt McCarthy, and I decided to use Prom 3 for this week. Um, the school that I decided to use was the school I teach at currently, which is Max Creek High School. It's located in Max Creek, and it has approximately 120 students in the entire high school. I wanted to do my original high school that I went to, but I thought doing the high school that I'm at now would be a better idea. That's why I chose Max Creek instead, with the smaller number, smaller sports. Um, Basically, Max Creek has 5 sports. Uh, we only have baseball, softball, boys and girls basketball, and track. Um, with Prong 3, I decided to do which is equivalence and other athletic benefits. So the first part of that would be team assessment. Uh, it's usually filled out by the head coach. Each head coach usually fills out their own team, how they did that year, how they feel like what needs to be happen more, what happens less, going on based on how their season went. And the other one would be a compliance factor that's filled out basically by the AD. It's just set criteria about how the team went, and each team is in charge of doing this on their own. So the head coach does it for them, and then the AD does the compliance for the entire program. The next part would be the summary assessment. Basically, within the summary assessment, it's filled out by the athletic director. Um, the athletic director, basically, receives after receiving all the team assessments that the head coach does. He goes ahead and does his summary assessment where he goes by, sees what the head coach has to say, and then he says what he has to say by himself. Kind of compares the two, contrasts the two, see what needs to be different, sees what he likes, sees what needs to change, stuff like that. Um, Basically, he or she, whoever the athletic director may be, needs to decide any differences between the men's and women's programs. So obviously, we're equal in what we have program-wise. We have baseball to correlate with softball, but girls basketball to correlate with boys basketball, and then we also have track and field, which is a combination of both boys and girls, which are allowed to play. Um, Now, after comparing the differences between the men's and the women's programs, then the AD, he or she, will try to fix any issues, see if there's any issues that needs to go on that needs fixing, and just can compare from there to see what needs to really be done. Um, Most of the time at our school, it doesn't seem like there's much that needs to be fixed most of the time because we're such a small school. We have about the same amount of numbers regardless. So next on the list would be the protective athletic equipment and other athletic supplies. Um, Among this, you have the quality, stability, the amount of these supplies, the maintenance, and the availability. So this could be anything from uniforms to um, baseball bat, helmet, glove, ball, uniforms, basketballs, track cleats, hurdles, the mats, uh, pole vault, anything like that. So the quality of equipment basically just depends on which sport's using it. Um, so for softball and baseball, they both have the same coach, so they use the same amount, same equipment. So it's usually in the same shape. They have batting cage that they can use. Basketball, the quality it just depends on the jerseys most of the time or the basketballs. Stability, it just depends on how much the items actually get used. Right now for basketball, we have a gun that the boys or girls can shoot on, which also passes the ball back. And it's not in the greatest shape because we've been using it quite a bit more now than we have been in the past. Um, Softball and baseball, part of their batting cages has holes in it because they've been. It's just not new anymore. It's been some wear and tear on it, so that there's just the stability. Um, the amount of the supplies, it really just basically depends on the head coach, how much he or she thinks they need to have for their team. Most of the time, that'd be uniform wise, especially since our schools or bats, balls, helmets, stuff like that. Uh, However many we think we would need necessary for basketball. I know this year we ordered 7 new boys basketballs and also 7 new girls basketballs. Tried to keep the same amount for both women and men. I'm sure the baseball and softball coach would do the same thing for the equipment that they use there because he's the same coach for both. So I would assume he just ordered the same amount of equipment for both and not give one majority over the other one. Um, and the availability of the equipment. Basically, it's all available. The batting cage is usually available for softball during softball season, baseball during baseball season. The gym, we have 2 gyms, so we can go back and forth. But the gun we use, we only have one, so it's really first come first serve. We usually see more boys using it than girls using it, just because that they're more adapted to using it. They've used it quite a bit before, and the girls just have not really had the opportunity, not the opportunity. They just choose not to. They would rather just go out and shoot, go get their own rebound, come back and shoot again, than have some machine continuously just keep passing on ball after ball after ball. The next issue to talk about would be the locker room. Uh, Locker rooms, practice facilities, and competition facilities. Basically, they're all under the same thing. Um, Basically, the practice and competition facility quality and availability. Like I said earlier, we do actually have 2 different gyms we can use. Um, Baseball has their own field, softball has their own field, and what's really difficult for us is that we have a track and field team, but we do not have a track. So basically, they're stuck out usually during their season. They're out stuck there in the parking lot. Uh, so it's really hard. The quality of that is not very good for our gyms. One gym is better than the other one. We have our main gym, and then we have our other old gym that they used to be the main gym way back in the day, back in the 1960s, and that's all been run down. But now it's used for elementary PE, so it's really tough to do practices and stuff in there. But most of it, okay. Availability wise, boys and girls will share. We'll split practice times in both gyms. Each day we'll go for a half. Not we'll go for a half of practice and then switch. Use the other half. Obviously, softball is going to use their own facility, so it's available to them. Baseball is going to use theirs, so that's available to them. And then track's just really stuck out in the parking lot for the most part, which is very difficult for our school. But we do not have the room to have a track or the funds to even implement one as well. Uh, exclusive exclusivity of use. Basically, everything's available for us. Basketball is going to use the gyms, baseball, softball, they're going to use their own fields, and track's going to use the parking lot because they have really nothing else. Sometimes track will use the gym, especially when it's raining. Baseball, softball, we use the batting cage in the old gym whenever it's raining or wet conditions, just anything they can do, basically. Event preparation. Both myself and the AD, who is the girls basketball coach, we will prepare the gyms for any junior high or high school basketball events we have. The baseball slash softball coach they'll prep the fields for them before practice or games or anything like that. Um, the maintenance and repair, it's all up to the coaches at our school. Basically, I do the gym most of the time, sweep it, get it ready to go, mop it, whatever needs done. And Coach Trusty is our baseball softball coach. He'll do whatever he can over there, make sure everything's ready to go. Track, just hurdles. Basically all you can worry about there is the equipment because there's not really a facility they have to use. Now, locker room quality. Our, our locker rooms are roughly a one guy locker room, one girl locker room. Both basically look identical. They both have showers, bathrooms they can use, and lockers, and dry erase boards to draw stuff up on. Um, they're both pretty small, but we are a small school, so it suits us well. I wish we could actually have 2 more locker rooms, just so because now we're stuck with the girls changing into ours before a home game. That way we can share the same locker room and then give the other visiting school the other locker room. So that's one thing I would like to have is just 2 more locker rooms so we could have ours to ourselves. The girls could have theirs to themselves, and the visiting school can have 2 as well. So one for their boys team, Now availability, our PE classes use it during the day. Um, that's basically all there is. And then after school, our boys can have their locker room, and girls can have their locker room. And then, like I said earlier, the girls and guys will share if we have a game, and we'll give the girls' locker room to the opposing team. And that's just something that was already going on ahead of time before I was there. Next, we have the allocation of travel, transportation, and per diem benefits, which include modes of transportation, overnight travel, or housing during overnight travel, the length of stay before and after, per diem allowance, and dining arrangements. Most of the time with this, we only worry about the transportation. Right now, we just have two kind of modes of transportation we can use. Um, Actually, I guess three technically if you want to talk about them driving their own specific car. Um, Baseball and softball will drive to and from the baseball field or softball field back to school or to the field after school, basically because the fields are not on the same exact campus as our school is at. We do own the land where the fields uh, are at, but they're not on the same piece of land. So there is quite a bit of travel, about 5 minutes. So they drive their own vehicles to get there for practice and games for home games. For away games, both boys and girls, or boys baseball, girls softball, boys and girls basketball, will take a bus to all their games. Track right now has been taking a van. They've been low on numbers, so they've just been taking a van, so we don't have to hire a bus driver to take them. Overnight travel, we haven't really had any overnight travel since I've been there. I know a few years ago they stayed in Columbia when the boys basketball team went to the Final Four, and that was all fundraised in order to do so. So basically, the only thing for us with this is the modes of transportation. Per diem allowance, we don't give them an allowance to spend on food or anything like that. So basically, the only thing is the transportation. So we have buses, them driving themselves in their cars to practices or home games, and then we also have the um, school van, which basically the track team uses. Sometimes basketball we use it during the summertime to go to different events, boys or girls, whatever it may be. And also coaches sometimes use it to go scout other teams as well. The next thing on the list would be the years of experience, quality, compensation, and assignment of coaching. Basically, girls softball and boys baseball, they both have a head coach and assistant coach. The head coaches for that are the same. The the softball assistant coach is elementary teacher. I'm actually going to be the boys assistant baseball coach this year. For basketball, we just have a head coach for girls, a head coach for boys. There used to be assistants a couple years ago before I got there, and then just the low case of numbers kind of eliminated the assistant coach from being there. They felt like only having 15 players maximum for your high school team. They didn't feel it was necessary for budget wise to hire an assistant. Um, Track has a junior high coach and a high school coach. Um, Basketball, I mean, we also have for junior high. I'm the boys junior high. The girls head coach is also the girls junior high, so it works like that. Um, Next on the list is we have sports publicity, marketing, and media services. You know, that's mainly for a college level thing. I know where I went to college, we had an SID, so sports information director. But right now, just the head coaches work on relaying the scores, telling the scores to the website or to the secretary to give in to put it on the website. Anything besides that. So basically, she does a good job separating it between boys and girls. Basically, just depending on how the coaches enter in the information is how much will be uploaded to the website. The other thing for that would just be the newspapers. Depending on, we have two newspapers that really come to watch us. So, however, most of the time we send stuff to them, or they'll come watch the game, and it's really up to them of what they really want to put in. If they want to headline boys basketball or girls basketball, baseball, softball, whatever it may be, it's up to them to see if they want it to be equal rights between boys and girls or not. Next on the list, we have game and practice times and scheduling. The number of competitive events, basically RAD sets that up. We try to get as many possible as Michigan will allow us to. I think most of the time we have right around the same number for boys and girls basketball. I'm not sure about baseball and softball, but usually for boys and girls basketball, it just depends on how they do in the tournaments to see if they have anything else than the other side. Time of day that the events are scheduled. Usually, if for basketball, since I'm going to talk about basketball a lot, since that's my main sport that I coach, so I understand that one a little bit more and how things work. Um, Usually, we'll have the girls play before the guys, and that's just how other schools around us schedule it as well. The girls will play, and then the guys will play. The number and length of practices. Usually, well, obviously with Mitchell, we have to have a certain amount before we can have a game, and the length of practice is really just how long the coach wants to go. Usually, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe a little bit more sometimes, but nothing to the extreme. Usually, it's from like 3:30 to 5:30 or 3:30 to 6, something around there. Um, Time of day which the practices are scheduled. Uh, every other sport besides myself, they will like to go right after school until 5:30 or 6. For me, on sometimes Fridays, I will schedule a morning practice so we can get out of there for the weekend after our meetings on Friday afternoon. So sometimes I'll go 5 to 7 in the morning on just a Friday morning for my boys basketball guys. But it's usually just up to the coach. Um, Next on the list is our facilities for it and access to athletic training and medical services. Um, we do not have an athletic trainer at Max Creek, so it makes it very difficult. Any medical stuff that we have to do, we either have to send them to the nurse, send them to the Lake Regional, which is the hospital at the lake, or we just kind of take care, tape up our athletes ourselves and really worry about our own athletes. We do have a weight room, um, so which there is a weight class, so they can get in there during the day, um, and they can get in there during the day, and then whatever their coach sets up that they have weights other days of the week or anything like that. Conditioning is also up to the coach. We don't really have a spot to do it besides either in the gym or outside, so it's really just up to the coach and what they feel is necessary for them to do. Um, Tutoring for us, if students need to do, they can go to tutoring after school. It's just teachers that go in there and schedule it, so they get $15 an hour, nothing too extreme, but it's just really up to the students. If they need it, then they'll go and get whatever they need done. Next on the list, we have institutional support services for athletic programs. So we have our AD. That's basically it. We don't our AD does not have a secretary or anything like that. Even though I know that most of the time he would need help tremendously, but all he has is himself. But 5 sports usually they can handle it, but they only have an extra plan hour to do all this stuff. They do not have just the AD stuff to worry about. So to conclude, basically, I feel like um, I think our guys and girls sports are pretty equal. We have obviously the same amount of numbers, but also the same amount since our baseball coach is also our softball coach. They probably equal around the same amount of time. The track coach deals the same. The only thing that may vary is just the boys and girls basketball a little bit. And most of the time we're in there switching gyms halfway through, so we're usually in there practice around the same time, using the same equipment, facilities, and all our games around the same. So from what I see for myself, Audit, I feel like Max Creek does a pretty equal job for both guys and girls sports. Thank you.